but we will get him back next week. Do you want to go ahead for a great weekend? Oh, I tell you what. Let's do the weekend right. Now, I'll tell you what. We're going to go ahead and let's do our player of the week. We'll go ahead and do our player of the week. Our Democrat Gazette All Arkansas Press Player of the Week. This is his second year in a row. We've only had a couple that have done that. And I told him, since he's a junior, there's a chance he'll be the only guy to ever be a three-time honoree at the Touchdown Club. His name is Lane Hatcher. He's a junior quarterback at Pulaski Academy. Last week, not this past week, he went 27 of 38 at quarterback for 473 yards, 6 touchdowns. They beat Little Rock Christian 73-35. This past week against Sylvan Hills, he goes 3 touchdowns for 320 yards. They beat a good Sylvan Hills team that was undefeated. He's a great young man. We honored him last year. And not only is he a great football player, he is a 2-time state champion wrestler. He won in the 170 class last year, in the 182 class, and his dad, Greg, said that he is going to win this year in the 195 class. So I would imagine he may be the only, I'm not joking, he may be the only high school quarterback in history. I bet you that to win 3 state championships in wrestling and maybe 3 state championships in football. Right, Kevin Kelly? Kevin said we're going to work on next week. Let's give a Touchdown Club welcome to Lane Hatcher, everybody. I wanted to recognize his families who are here today. Greg and Lee Hatcher. Got a chance to honor Greg at the Big Brothers Big Sisters roast last week. He brought in Martina McBride. Greg is such a rainmaker in our community, does so much. It helped with the Broyles Award, the marathon, does so many great things. And Greg, thank you for what you've done in wrestling, and nice to have you and Lee here. Their kids, in addition to Lane, you got Kelsey. Where's Kelsey? Kelsey's getting ready to marry a former Razorback, Weston Dacus. Let both of you stand up because you're a former Razorback. Stand up. There you go. As I said at the Martina McBride, it just doesn't end. All of his kids are successful at whatever they do. Now they're going to have super grandbabies. They're going to be successful grandbabies one of these days, whenever y'all are ready. Yes, no rush on that. Let me acknowledge his other 3 daughters that are here. Please stand. Haley, Larkin, and Maddie. Would you please stand? Let's welcome them. Lee's mom and dad, Bill and Sandy Tranum, whom Bill played for the Razorbacks in 1959, 1960. Please stand, former Razorback, Bill and Sandy Tranum. How about that? And we got a famous judge in the room today. I recognize him. He doesn't look like your typical judge. Rex, I don't think he's your typical judge. He's quite the character, but glad to have him here. Judge Bill Wilson, everybody. Let's give him a round of applause. All right, this should be a fun weekend recap. Let's give it up for Rex Nelson, everybody. Let's go, Rex.
All right. Thank you, everybody. It was a good Saturday. Arkansas State, UCA all win. So it's time for the weekly recap, sponsored by Simmons Bank. Now, I do have to mention one thing to you. David mentioned when he was talking about the Broyles Award, Coach Tom Herman down at Houston. Did you see that story where he kisses his players on the cheek when they come into the dressing room before the game? David, Coach, was wanting to kiss everybody at the head table on the cheek. He was so inspired by that story. Luckily, I talked him out of it. I was able to talk him out of it before this week. All right, let's get to it. Arkansas 34, Ole Miss 30. Arkansas downs Ole Miss for a 3rd consecutive season. So the Hogs go to 5-2 overall, 1-2 in the conference. Rebels fall to 3-3 and 1-2. One of the loudest crowds in school history. You probably read the stories about the decibel meters. 73,786 and probably sounded like 100,000. Arkansas dominated time of possession in that game. 40 minutes and 38 seconds to 19 minutes and 22 seconds for Ole Miss. They outgained the Rebels 429 to 403. Raleigh Williams, 27 carries, a career high 180 yards against the school he initially committed to. And for the first time in the Brett Bielema era, a ranked Arkansas team defeated another ranked team. Now, unranked Arkansas teams, of course, had defeated ranked teams, but first time that had happened. So Arkansas has now topped 400 yards in offense in 6 consecutive games. Pretty impressive. Hugh Freeze falls to 2-3 against Arkansas since leaving Arkansas State for Ole Miss, and Arkansas now leads that overall series 34-27-1. And there is now, Ole Miss has a little different. There's a dispute over the 1914 game. Who won that? As I mentioned, I think last week, though, Coach, I will note 1914, one thing in common, both Ole Miss and Arkansas lost to Ouachita in 1914. So just pointing that out. The birthplace of college football in Arkansas. All right, Arkansas State, how about it? 2-0 in the Sun Belt Conference. Great start. Arkansas State 17, South Alabama 7, Red Wolves with 297 yards of offense. And Coach goes on the ground now. I'll let him talk about that. 204 of that came on the ground. First time in 3 years for ASU to win when passing for fewer than 100 yards. Red Wolves had 54 running plays and only 13 pass plays in that football game. Now, remember, this is a South Alabama team that's already defeated Mississippi State at Stark Vegas and defeated San Diego State on the road. So that's a good football team. Red Wolves held them to 255 yards. That was a season low for South Alabama, and I'll let Coach talk about the rest of that one. UCA, as David mentioned, great start. They're 5-1 overall, 4-0 in conference play, a win at McNeese, and anybody who's ever followed that conference can tell you traditionally wins don't come easily down at McNeese State. Bears took advantage of 5 Cowboy turnovers in that game, and they win in a rout by a final score of 35-0. That is, now get this, the first time for McNeese to be shut out against a Southland team since 1988, and it's the first time for McNeese to be shut out at home since 1987. 4-0, best conference start for the Bears since they joined the Southland Conference in 2006. UCA led 14-0 at the half at that one, scored on the first possession of the third quarter and led 28-0 at the end of the third quarter, and then just one going away. All right, Great American Conference. Harding still undefeated, 7-0. Henderson 6-1. Southern Arkansas's 5-2. Ouachita's 4-3. Arkansas Tech's 4-3. UAM 2-5. I won't bother with the 6 Oklahoma schools. Harding, though, still alone in first, 63-7 over a Southeastern Oklahoma team that had come in 4-2. The lead was only 17-14 at the end of the first quarter. Then the Bisons outscore Southeastern 35-0 in the second quarter. I'm starting to think they may run the table and finish 11-0. This is a very good Harding team. Henderson, still nationally ranked. They bounced back from that loss to Harding, and they down UAM and Arkadelphia 45-7. The Reddies outrushed the Boll Weevils 295-105. Jaquan Cole, 3 TDs on the ground for Henderson. Now, Ouachita and SAU, that highlight you heard, that was just the first half. Imagine what it sounded like at the end of the game. Ouachita was down to its 5th string tailback due to injuries. Seriously, they had to pull a red shirt off a freshman and put him in. Somehow they outlast SAU in 4 overtimes, 40-37. Mule Riders had gone ahead 27-24 with 1:30 left on a field goal. Ouachita manages to get a guy out of bounds with 2.8 seconds left. They send on the field goal team, and they hit a 49-yard field goal in the last play of regulation to send it to overtime. Then the same kid at the end of the second overtime has a chance to win it on a 21-yard field goal, an extra point basically. He misses it. So we go a third overtime, finally go a fourth overtime, and that same kicker, Cole Antley, hits from 36 yards at the end of the fourth overtime, and Ouachita wins that game. Arkansas Tech has won 2 straight. They're playing very well all of a sudden. 55-14 in Russellville over 1-6 East Central Oklahoma. Jabias Cross, he had started the season at wide receiver and then moved to quarterback due to injuries and is doing great. 3 TDs, he ran for 2 more. And Hendricks, now we don't have Rasco to represent Hendricks, but we have Judge Wilson to represent Hendricks, who was a football player for those Hendricks Warriors. He was so good they did away with the sport after he left for a number of years. Finally just started back 3 years ago, got off to a 5-0 start. They lose their first game of the season, 6-1 to Berry, 24-14. Warriors were held to just 60 yards rushing in that game. All right, on to the SEC quickly. What on earth is Georgia doing losing at home between the hedges to Vanderbilt? But they did. Not a good start for Kirby Smart. I guess they're happy at Georgia they ran off Mark Richt, don't you think, right now? They're 4-3 overall, 2-3 in the conference. Derek Mason gets his first SEC road win in his 3rd season as the Vanderbilt coach. Commodores are 3-4 and 1-3. Bulldogs lost, get this, despite outgaining Vanderbilt 421 to 171. That's what they outgained them, and they lost the football game. So much for that showdown in Knoxville. A lot of you were looking forward to watching Saturday afternoon. Boy, Alabama just turned it into a rout, 49-10. It was the most lopsided victory by either team in that rivalry since 1906. As Alabama goes to 7-0, Tennessee falls to 5-2, 2-2 in the conference. 19th consecutive victory for Alabama, dating back to that loss at Ole Miss last year. Alabama has now won 10 straight against Tennessee. And get this, you think the SEC West is not strong? Tennessee is 0-13 in its past 13 games against teams from the SEC West. 0-13. Alabama outrushes Tennessee 438-32. That's the most yards rushing for a Crimson Tide team since 1986. Florida's 5-1 overall, 3-1 in the conference, 40-14 in Gainesville against Missouri. Missouri's bad, 2-4 overall, 0-3 in the conference. Florida had 2 interception returns for touchdowns. LSU, Ed Orgeron, our man, he's 4-2 following a 45-10 victory over 4-3 Southern Miss. The game was tied, though, 10-10 at the half. And boy, Mississippi State misses Dak Prescott, but the Cowboys are glad they have him right now. Bulldogs fall to 2-4, a 28-21 double overtime loss at BYU on Friday night. All right, this week in the SEC, Texas A&M at Alabama. The way Alabama's playing, anybody like the Aggies this week to spring the upset? There's a couple of Aggies out there. All right, Mississippi State at Kentucky, Ole Miss at LSU. It's an interesting game. How many of you like Ole Miss to bounce back from the loss to Arkansas and go in and win at Baton Rouge? How many of you like LSU to win that game? That's going to be an interesting matchup, I think. Middle Tennessee at Missouri, Massachusetts at South Carolina, Tennessee State at Vanderbilt, Arkansas at Auburn. How many of you like Arkansas to go in and win at Auburn? That's most of you. Anybody with the Tigers? Auburn Tigers. All right. Arkansas against Malazan. All right, in the state, we got Lamar at UCA, Henderson versus SAU in El Dorado, where they're playing that one. Ouachita at UAM. Chicago, that's not the Bears, that's the University of Chicago, the Brain School, playing at Hendricks. And Arizona Christian at Lyon. So you got 2 games in Conway, a game in El Dorado, a game in Monticello, game in Batesville. Get out and see a college football game Saturday. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, Rex. Coach Anderson and I were looking, Rex, when you were asking, you know, how many of you think Auburn's going to beat Arkansas? Well, there were hands that were not raised when you picked Arkansas. It was a big group down here, and it just happened to be a lot of ASU representatives. So, Coach, like, they're not going to raise their hands and go Auburn in this crowd. You're smart. You're smart. couple things real quick before we get Coach up here. I did want to mention, I mentioned it quickly. I know that Lee Hatcher's here. Lee, you're the backbone behind that family while Greg's out making money, being successful. Great to have you here. You got a beautiful family. Did want to say how proud I am of this touchdown club. I think we got the best administrator in the country. You see how packed it is in here. Debbie Wyman, let's give it up for Debbie every week. And then how cool is it to come in every week and have the ladies out front just checking you in, doing. Let's give all of them that wave, everybody. Let's give them a round of applause. Wave back. Come on. We see you back there. And last but not least, Coach Anderson was asking, how many folks do you have here per week? And I'm going to tell you, you guys are our core group. We're not a Razorback club. We're not an ASU club. We're not an OBU club. We're an Arkansas football club. That's why it's exciting that I'm up in the press box rooting for Arkansas State and OBU. And so it's great to have all of you here every week. It may not be the team you root for, but you're here representing to support all of our state schools. So that's something I'm very proud of. And I appreciate you guys and ladies for being here, making that happen each week. Before we introduce Coach, I know we have a lot of folks from ASU, so I tell you what, first let's welcome the president of Arkansas State, Chuck Welch. Chuck, let's give him a round of applause. He's no dummy. Now, if you could hold your, I tell you what, let me mention too, I know we have a former ASU standout quarterback. We all know him. He's with Arkansas Urology. He's on the board of trustees. Please welcome Tim Langford, everybody, and his wife, Terry. Where are they at? There they are. Coach, he's still he looks like he's got a couple snaps left in him. He still is in good shape. I do want to recognize we've got, I think, 3 vice presidents here. We've got Shane Broadway, Julie Bates, and Jeff Hankins. Please stand. Let's recognize them. I know Jeff, Shane. Yes, I'm getting. Hey, listen. You hear that? They think I'm not a professional. And the general counsel for ASU, Brad Phelps. Brad, let's give him a round of applause. Yes. Listen. I've been doing this for 13 years. I have a few fumbles every once in a while, but not most of the time. But thank all of you for being here. We're always welcome. We're glad to have the Red Wolf family here at the Touchdown Club. So we don't have Jim Rasco, so just real quickly on Coach Anderson. Many of you may know he's from Hubbard, Texas, and played football at Baylor and Sam Houston. And Grant Taft was still at Baylor, right? And we've had Coach Taft here. He's a great coach. And Coach became the 30th coach at Arkansas State. This is his 3rd year. He's taken ASU to 2 straight bowl appearances. Last year, 8-0 in the conference, undefeated. And I love the fact that, last it was a Wednesday night when y'all played Georgia Southern, right? I hardly ever get a chance to catch your games because I'm busy covering the Razorbacks, but it was so fun to watch his offense. And many of you know, he coached with Larry Fedora. Coached at Southern Miss and coached at North Carolina. And we've had a lot of talk about Greater, the movie Greater about Brandon Burlsworth. Well, his quarterback, Austin Davis, won the Burlsworth Trophy, and Coach played a big role in his development, and he's a heck of a quarterback. And so Coach knows how to coach some offense. They came out early. Coach said, as far as he's concerned, they're 2-0. They're not counting those first 4 games. But all I know is this: if ASU continues to play like they have looked the last 2 games against Georgia Southern and South Alabama, they got a chance for another conference championship. Let's give a Touchdown Club welcome to Blake Anderson, everybody.
Welcome, Coach. Thank y'all very much. Thank you very much. And I'm just curious, by show of hands, this is my 3rd time being here, and I appreciate y'all having me back. Either did something right or it's just one of those weeks where you can't get anybody good. No. I don't know which. How many of you guys were here last year when I spoke? Show of hands. Golly. A little bit of a problem. I realize, small issue. Realized on the way down here that I brought the notes from last year's speech instead of this year's speech, and so if there's any part of it you forget or you're going to get picked up on. So no, it's good to be back. Good to be back at Arkansas State for the 3rd year. Good to be back here for the 3rd year as well. I grew up, knowing that there's some great people. I know Coach Beamer was here last week and had a chance to get to know him when I was coaching at Carolina in that league. And there's been some great folks speak here, so I appreciate the opportunity to come back. And I do have a few different things to talk about today. I won't bore you with the same exact story. I am from Hubbard, Texas, but I was born in Jonesboro, Arkansas. So, I spent most of my life. Yeah, there you go. There's a couple. There's a couple. Now, hey, before we get to me, I got to ask, is it true that you picked my opponents the last 2 weeks in a row?
Yeah, I have. You're hurting my.
No, hey, you keep picking whoever you want to pick. Not a problem. Don't let that bother you. We've only won 11 conference games in a row, but don't let that concern you. Not a big deal.
I got you from here on.
Not a big deal. That is big. We bumped into each other a couple weeks ago eating a burger down at the Burger Barn in Arkadelphia. My son is a sophomore wide receiver there, and I got a chance to meet him and visit down there. So I thought that was good. At least I know if you're picking them, we got a chance. So we're good. So now I don't know what it is, but coming into this thing, I've been thinking about what to talk to you guys. Most of you guys come back. I know that you're regulars, and I was thinking about I got touchdown coming up, and David's going to be calling me. And I don't know. I must have David on the brain. I don't know which. All right, because I had a dream about David last night. Hold up. Hey, we got kids in the room here, all right? This was the G version, PG-13 version of the dream. However, Basil and I died on the same day. We both died on the same day. We ended up at the pearly gates at the exact same time, and being the nice guy that I am, I let him go first. And so he knocked on the pearly gates. St. Peter came in and saw him. He said, "David Basil." He said, "Come on in." All of a sudden, confetti, we're talking marching band, angels singing, parade down the streets of gold, you name it. I'm standing right there just watching all this. The biggest party you've ever seen. The biggest party you've ever seen for David Basil. He kind of waves at me as he goes, and St. Peter takes him down the street, and they kind of disappear in the mist. It's just beautiful. Tears in my eyes. Number one, I was wondering, David's here. Number one, I was thinking that David, they actually let him in, so there's a chance, all right? So anyway, so I wait probably 20, 30 minutes standing there by myself. Everything calms down. They actually come in and sweep up all the confetti off the street, clean it back up. St. Peter finally makes his way back over to me, and he says, "Blake Anderson, good to have you. Come on in." So number one, I got in. I was fired up. We start walking down. No confetti. No marching band. No singing. We just walk. Just walking. He's kind of showing here's the pearly gates, and here's they did have a football stadium right there in the middle, just in case any of you guys are wondering. And I don't know. We go on for about 15, 20 minutes. And I said, "St. Peter, look, I'm glad to be here. No, I'm happy to be here. I'm just curious, man. I saw David come in, and it kind of got excited. There was all kind of stuff." He said, "Hold up. Look, Coach." We've had a lot of Red Wolves in here over the time. It kind of becomes kind of used to. We're kind of used to that. That's the first Razorback we've ever seen in this place. So good stuff. So, oh, come on, it's a joke. He'll get over it. Hey, we're never going to play each other. We might as well have some fun with each other, all right? Come on. So, anyway, no, it's a good deal. Speaking of first, all right? Speaking of first, first-time head coach, I get to do a lot of things for the first time, right? And so there's been a lot of things that have happened since you saw me last year that are first, and just some good things. Obviously, my staff and this group won our first championship, and so when we're in the middle of all that when we talked to you last year, I think if I'm not mistaken, I still had a cast on my hand where I'd broken a couple bones. Hey, whatever you got to do to win a game, you do it. Have not had to break any bones this year, but I'm saving a few just in case we get to that point. But we were able to win the championship. That makes 4 out of 5 years. And so, again, I would tell you, in conference play, I would be careful who I choose, just in case.
We're set.
And so that was huge. Take what we've been left from previous coaches, bring in some guys to fit. Staff did a great job. Great job because it was really a great combination of what had been left from previous coaches and what we're able to piece together because we were awful the year before. We were really not a very good football team. We were lucky to get a bowl game that year before. And so to rebound and do that a year ago was huge. So we not only won a conference title on the field, but maybe just as proud of winning a conference title off the field. We had the highest GPA in school history. We won the Sun Belt Conference Academic Award. I think that's 11 out of the last 13 years we've been able to do that in football and athletics. 58 players on my football team above a 3.0. So, there are a lot of people doing a great job there. Those are first. to be able to win it on and off the field is huge. My first trip as a head coach to the New Orleans Bowl, it was a great trip. However, we did not get the result we wanted. We want to go back. We want to win it the next time. But, those, again, another first. That's 5th straight bowl game. We want to make that 6th this year. We want to find a way. And we got our work cut out for us. But, hey, we're headed in the right direction. Like I said, we're 2-0. I don't know what happened the first 4 weeks. I don't even think we played a game. We're 2-0 for the season, so we're moving in the right direction. Really, for me as a head coach, first staff movement. When I took the job a few years ago, I sat down with Chuck and the crew, and they asked me, well, who are you going to hire? I gave them 9 names, and all 9 guys said yes, and all 9 guys showed up and started day one. Not any haggling, not any conversation. They're all yes. They knew they wanted to go. We've been planning this for some time. And so for the first 2 years, I was able to keep everybody in the house. Everybody stayed put. A lot of guys had offers to leave and didn't. Well, last year I had 3 guys leave staff. I lost my offensive coordinator, which is almost like losing my son. He played for me 15 years ago. He'd been with me for 7 or 8 years in a row, both at Lafayette and Southern Miss and Carolina, and came with me. So losing him was huge. He's now at Maryland. Walt Bell, just so y'all know, Freddie Knighton is there volunteering for him off the field and helping coach Skill and doing a great job. But that was tough to lose part of your family, first for me to go through. Also lost, he took my running backs coach with him, and my offensive line coach left and went to Missouri, so I was kind of poached by the Big Ten and the SEC. Both of those guys are struggling a little bit right now. They're going through it. I hear a lot from them, but that was another phase to go through as a head coach. I got to hire people that are going to come in and fit. And I think I did a couple other firsts as well. I hired 2 guys, and they stayed, I think, a total of about 5 minutes each, and both left immediately. I hired a running backs coach. He barely unpacked his bags in the office, and he took a job the very next day to Purdue. That's not going very well if you've been paying attention. And I hired an O-line coach that didn't even touch the foot on campus, and then took a job at South Florida. So not only did I change staff once, but I changed staffs again during that process. Now, we ended up with Buster Faulkner from Middle Tennessee as our offense coordinator, and he is finding his way through and figuring out what our guys are. I think I've been really proud of how he's adapted over the last few weeks to find a way to move the ball. It's frustrating early. Life without Freddie Knighton, as we all know, is not easy, all right, and we're finding that out. But they've gotten better each week. Alan Rudolph we hired as our online coach, and also we brought in a running backs coach from Vanderbilt, Norv McKenzie. And those guys have been great fits. They're great people, number one, but also if you look at their background, they've done a great job where they've been. But that was new. That was new. That was a challenge. And it went all the way through December and January on into the recruiting process. Also, I would like to say I was asked. I'm not sure I was asked. I was placed on the board of trustees for the AFCA, American Football Coaches Association. I say placed because I've never been able to say no to Coach Taft. And when Coach Taft called me as a player, I said, yes, sir. He calls me as a coach. I say, yes, sir. He said, you need to be on the board of trustees. I said, are you asking me or telling me? He said, you need to be on the board of trustees. I said, yes, sir. I happen to sit. We have the Arkansas corner. I happen to sit right next to Brett Bielema and Todd Knight, all 3 of us on that board. And that board is about trying to further the game, protect the players, and find every way we can to make it better. And so I got a chance to spend 3 or 4 days sitting next to Brett and Todd Knight, which has been a great experience. And from that, probably is where the All-Arkansas football camp came from. We're the first to ever host an All-Arkansas football camp right here in Little Rock last June, and to get the Razorbacks and the Red Wolves on the same field at the same time apparently is history made in June. I don't know. So now we saw 700 kids that day. It was logistically just chaotic. Every university, every Division II, 1AA, and Division I school in the state was there with their staffs, some entire staffs, some just a few. I got a chance to watch those 700 kids. I'd love to see the statistics coming out of that. How many scholarships were offered to young men through the course of that day? Now, we're going to continue to do that as often as they'll have us. They've been great. He talked about, being there at War Memorial. We've had camps and scrimmages there, and it's been wonderful. We'll continue to come back as often as they'll have us. Now, during the process of this, because this was all going through the spring, had a personal first as well. And not a first I would wish upon anybody. I had my house flood for the first time. All right, so I haven't lived in Jonesboro. I didn't grow up there. I was born there, but I grew up in Texas, and in Hubbard, Central Texas. And we'd get rain. It rained. We'd get a little water here and there, but never had a house flood. So in the middle of March, we're working, and I'm not exactly sure where I was. I just remember getting a phone call from my oldest son saying, "Dad, it's raining hard and there's a lot of water in the house." I said, "How much water?" He said, "Well, I can't see my feet, okay? I can't see my feet." I said, "Well, I'm on my way. Me and all the GAs, Derek Haney, where you at?" Derek Haney's really good. Derek Haney's one of our young GAs. He's really good at scooping water, by the way, in case you need he needs some extra hours working. So we get to the house, and we start getting water out everywhere. It's only about 6 to 8 inches of water. We got through it. I said only. It gets better. All right, it gets better. We got it all out. We got it dried up. And we put the fans on, the dehumidifiers. We went through the whole process. Started asking people in Jonesboro. I said, "Look, man, now, I bought this house, and nobody ever said anything about floods." They said, "Look, that was a 50-year storm. That was a 50-year storm. I mean, that will never happen to you guys again." And they were right. They were absolutely right, because in May, when it flooded the next time, it was a foot of water. It wasn't 6 inches. And that was the 100-year storm, I was told. All right, so my house not only flooded the first time, but it flooded first for the second time, all in about 3 months. And so my wife and I, we are still remodeling and getting it. Man, we had it everywhere. So flood insurance, just as a reminder. We've been in 20 houses in 24 years. This is the first one to flood, and I hope it's the last one to flood. Me and the city engineer have gotten to be on first-name basis. They're digging a moat around my house to try to divert it. There's a Razorback fan right next door, and we're going to put the drainage right there in his backyard. So, but all that kind of brings us to this year. Obviously, there's a lot of great things that happen. Brings us to this year. And I said, life without Freddie, absolutely. Life without Freddie. Life without a coordinator that I've been with for 10 years. Life without, J.D. McKissick, who's still with the Falcons. Darren Griswold, who went to the Colts. Life without some of those guys. I mean, it's been an adjustment. A really tough schedule to start. Toledo, Auburn, obviously huge opponents to start the season out. We still didn't even know who our quarterback was going to be. We didn't find that out for about 4 weeks. Unfortunately, during that 4-week process, we're taking them on the chin left and right. And yes, one of those being from UCA, who Steve and his group did a great job. They came in, we turned it over, they didn't, and they got the win. And so we went through 4 weeks of trying to figure out who we are. Great thing about our fan base is they didn't quit on us. Now, the guys on the fringes did. They bailed out, but the true core just got stronger and stronger every week. I cannot tell you how many emails, phone calls, texts of support, letters, you name it, that I got during the course of that 4 weeks. Guys, that's rare. That just doesn't happen everywhere. It just doesn't. Most places I grew up in Texas, you'd come home, there'd be a for sale sign in your front yard. It's just the truth. So that has been unique. It just has made me love the place even more. And our whole goal is to build Arkansas State in a way, and I tell Terry and Chuck this all the time, so that this place is good for the next 20 years, not for the next 20 minutes. And we did a great job of piecing together what we had and what we could find and win in a championship last year. This is a completely different challenge. We're starting to see recruiting classes graduate out. We're starting to see what happens when you have 5 head coaches in 5 years. There's 35 players that were signed over a 3-year period that are no longer on our campus, that never made a tackle, never scored a point, never caught a ball. And so there's transition that we're getting through. And luckily, and fortunately for us, our fan base has stayed right there. Our administration never wavered, man, just keep doing what we're doing. And we've built it on 3 things. We talk about building a monster. We built it on 3 things: faith, family, and having a great time doing what we're doing. Now, I promise you, when you're 0-4, your faith gets tested. All right, it just does. And I can in Romans and in Hebrews and James, I'm tired of reading how I'm supposed to rejoice in trial, and how I'm supposed to rejoice, and how it's a blessing to go through suffering, and how it's supposed to be considered pure joy. All right, I've read those a bunch, and I know I'm not real good at doing it. However, I know what we're going through is going to make us stronger in the long run. And I think sometimes you just got to come to pure rock bottom. It's the way I've always been personally. I'm just real stubborn. You got to come to pure rock bottom before I think you can start climbing your way back up. And that's really what we've done. We did it as a team. We did it as a staff. We've done it individually. We got to pure rock bottom, and we had one or two ways to go. We could get down there at the bottom. We could start pointing fingers at each other and blame everybody else, or we could pull together. That's exactly what this team's done. Never been more proud of a group than how they responded in the face of what was an awful start. Not what any of us wanted. Obviously, we don't work 80, 90 hours a week to go on 4 to lose games. But they pulled together. We've had 2.5 great weeks of work. Our best practices, most physical, most detailed, and it's come from the kids. It's come from the kids. They blame themselves. They want to find out ways they could get better. And that's exactly what they did. And we beat 2 really good opponents. Georgia Southern was one of the top teams in the country on both sides of the ball, and we beat them in every aspect. We even beat them in turnovers because we had 5 and they had none. And I've never seen a game won. And Wes Moore told me he's seen 14 times in the last 20 years, I think, that a team's overcome a -5 deficit. And so we made history, and I don't want to make history like that again, but we found a way to do it. We had the immaculate scramble on 4th and 16, and we had a catch that nobody still understands if it's a catch or not, but the hands went up, and they didn't overturn it, so it must have counted, and we found a way to win too. So we got a week off. We're trying to get healthy. We're really beat up. One of the reasons that we ran the ball as much as we did this last week, the reason we ran the clock is because we got the best defense in the league, and we also knew that we have a brand new true freshman starting at left guard, and we had a left tackle playing on one leg. And they got a pretty good pass rush. We felt like we ran the clock short in the game and just hit them in the mouth. Our defense would win it, and that's exactly what we did. Now, we'll open it back up in the future when we get healthy, but it's what we had to do to win a game. And to me, that's balance. When you do whatever it takes to win a game, it's also swallowing your pride. Because as a play caller all those years, I couldn't stand to run the ball more than about 3 plays at a time. I mean, I'd break out in a rash if I didn't get to throw a pass somewhere along the way. So to be able to do that, we ran the ball the first 10 plays of the game and ran about 8 minutes off the clock and put ourselves in a position to win a game. And to me, that's smart coaching on my offensive coordinator and offensive line coach's part. So got to give them a tremendous amount of credit. And they've not gotten a lot of that this year. People have been really critical of them. And just understand they're doing a great job, both players and staff. So, the next thing for us is just get better. Just get better each day. And that's what guys are trying to do. We're trying to change lives of kids on and off the field. We've had 14 young men come to know Christ in the last 2 years on our football team and one of our staff members. And we found a way to win a championship. Yeah. Found a way to win a championship and have some good grades, and have had one of the things I like the most is every senior that we've had inside of our program since we've been there has graduated with a degree, and everybody is on track to do that again this year. A couple of them sitting right here. Butterfield. So, hopefully if you hadn't made a game, I hope you make one. We got a home game here in 2 weeks. We're running out of them. We're running out of them because our last 3 games of the year are on the road. We play Monroe at home next Saturday night. We're on the road for a week, on a short week, on a Thursday night game, you call it. All we'll be able to say against Georgia State. And then we're back at home again on a Saturday night game against New Mexico State. And then back on the road on a short week, Thursday night game against Troy. So there'll be some opportunities for you to see us. Hopefully you'll take a trip and come up and see us in person. They've done a great job. Facilities are phenomenal. And there's nothing like a Saturday afternoon in the vault. Now, I know some of you guys may have some questions.
Yeah, I got the first 2. I got the first 2 because you told the joke on me. That's why I get it. That's so good. I got 2 questions. I got 2 questions. One has to do with the recruiting, and because you mentioned Freddie Knighton. And we've honored Freddie Knighton at this touchdown club, but I wanted to make mention, I failed to introduce him a minute ago, future Hall of Fame Arkansas high school coach. He's won, 5 or 6, Kevin, state championships? 5. He's won 45 consecutive conference games. Hadn't lost a conference game since 2011. Hadn't lost a home game since 2011. Let's welcome Kevin Kelly, who's here today. But I wanted to, no question. No, it's not about his recruits, Coach. What is the philosophy? Because I know you're competing against Arkansas. You're competing against UCA. What is your philosophy on how many Arkansas kids you try to sign? That's one. And the second, if you haven't been to Jonesboro lately to see the facilities that they have, talk about what you've seen and what you think facility-wise you have now at ASU.
Start off with recruiting. One of as many Arkansas high school kids as we can get that fit our needs. One of our issues when we got there, however, because of all the transition, we had some significant holes in our upper class areas, and so we had to make a decision. And we had to build a lot of our roster with veteran guys, junior college players, older guys. What you're looking at, if you look at our starting two deep right now, on offense, we're fortunate. All those old linemen are seniors, most of which were there already, with the exception of the right tackle, who we brought in as a junior college guy. Defensively, there's a lot of players that we had to go out and get. We found out the first year we could not stop a hard charging band on defense. We just couldn't. I mean, and so we had to go fix that. We did that with transfer. A lot of those guys are going to play on Sunday as well. Waylon Roberson, the big interior D tackle, who's definitely a guy that would be up for some D lineman awards as the year goes on. So we blended it. Ideally, what we love to do is take of our 25 guys, take about 21 high school players, start in the state of Arkansas, and then move out. We really recruit from Tulsa, Oklahoma, all the way to Atlanta. That's about a 6-hour drive from campus. That's reasonable. That's also in everybody's backyard that we play inside of our league, and so we kind of concentrate in that area. But we always start at home. We've got a commitment from an in-state kid now. We've got offers out to several others, but we haven't beat Arkansas on a kid yet. We had one commit, flip to them. We haven't had one flip back. If somebody's going to be the first, don't know when it's going to be, but we're all battling for the same guys. In terms of, and that's year to year too. It's based off of need and what we're doing. We're down to just a few spots and still recruiting some in-state kids and a handful of out-of-state kids as well for that. Facility-wise, from the time I sat down with Chuck and the crew a couple of years ago, they made it really clear that we were not done. That we wanted to bring the facility level up to that of the best in the group of 5. Anybody that we're going to recruit against, not trying to compete with the SEC in terms of the spending. It's not possible. That's a different world. We don't live in it. But we wanted to be competitive in our area, which is group of 5 through those 5 conferences. And we've seen an expanded stadium with luxury boxes that are sold out every week and every year. One of the nicest game day environments you can imagine. A Jumbotron that was brand new, that was changed the game day environment for the fans. A brand new indoor facility, 120 yards of indoor, which we spend probably half our time in because of the crazy weather, the lightning, you name it, the rain, the ice during the winter. All of our other sports use it as well. And we're really close to moving to the next project, which will be to expand the end zone and build a new complex. My president's sitting right here, and he's listening to me. And so that is to create more space, a team environment, weight room that'll be twice the size that we have now, and it will really truly give us everything we need to be competitive. And if you haven't been there in the last 4 or 5 years, the place has changed dramatically. It's a great environment and great facility, and it allows us to recruit. The hard thing for us to do in recruiting is we have to go into everybody else's backyard. In terms of, we can't fill our roster completely with Arkansas. We've got to go into Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi against teams that we play against and get them to come to us. And we won, and we got guys in the NFL, and we've graduated players, but at the end of the day, they are 18-year-old, 17-year-old, and facilities is the one area we got to always stay ahead of the game, and that's what we've been able to do. Yes, sir.
As someone who has written and presented about amplophobia, the abnormal fear of flooding, how has the life lessons you've learned as a coach been helpful in
Buy flood insurance, number 1. Buy a place that's on the top of a hill, number 2, if possible. And other than that, man, for me, patience. And don't ever pray for it, but when it comes around, you learn. Because it's, at one point, my wife, seriously, she called me and she said, by the way, this has to be replaced too. And I don't know if you guys, I'm a movie guy. Y'all see the Money Pit where the what is it, the bathtub goes through the ceiling? And he doesn't have anything to say, he just starts laughing. I just took that video and I just sent it to her. I didn't say anything. I just took it and sent it. She said, you've reached that point, you're done. You broke. I don't want to hear anything else. Just tell me what the bill is when it's all over with. So who else? Yes, sir. Well, there's as most things, there's good and bad of it. Obviously, a national audience, to be the only game on and to represent the university the way we did is huge. It gets into homes that we would not normally get into and people that would not normally come. I mean, Basil's watching the game. I mean, like I said, I mean, that's. I mean, I'm surprised. When you say go A-State, do all? I do it quietly. You do it quietly, okay. All right. I mean, that's a lot. But it's an environment that we wouldn't normally get in. So to be the only game on, I get a ton of response, both in recruits, coaches, and throughout college football. You know, coaches that are watching that night, typically they're probably wrapping up what they're doing and they're watching that game. But it hurts, man, to not be that Saturday afternoon in front of your home crowd. There's a give and take, and we don't have a choice anyway. I mean, you know, TV owns the rights to most of that. The conference and ESPN tell us when to play. We get very little, and hopefully we're a good enough product that they want us on. That means we're winning, we're competitive, and so I think it's just something we got to deal with. But I think there's probably more positive than the negative, to be honest with you, in terms of exposure for the state, for the brand, and for what we're trying to do in recruiting. Anybody else?
All right, Coach, that's it.
That's it. We're done. Thank y'all so much.
Blake Anderson, everybody. Thanks, Coach. Blake Anderson. Thanks, everybody, being here today. Southwest Conference Hall of Fame next week. We'll see you next Monday. Thanks for being here, everybody.